They thought she was just a sweet old lady with wobbly knees, but the minute she opened her mouth, the whole room froze. Meet Mavis Langley, 74 years old and more spunky than your favorite grandchild. They put her on stage as a joke, but what did she bring? Oh my, it wasn't comedy. It was goosebumps. Real goosebumps. Stick with me for this story. It might change the way you think about old age forever. In the town of Larkhaven, where the most exciting thing all week was usually Mr. Tom's dog biting the mailman again, there lived a woman as quietly as if she were a background character in her own life. Mrs. Mavis Langley, age 74. Mrs. Mavis wasn't loud, didn't like crowds, and had a firm policy against anyone knocking on her door after 6 p.m., unless they were delivering pizza. She lived alone in an old brown wooden house at the edge of town, the kind of place that, without GPS, you might mistake for a wild mushroom harvesting station. Everyone knew of Mrs. Mavis, though no one really knew her. She didn't attend senior yoga, hadn't been to church since 2012, after a young pastor mistakenly called her an older sister in faith, and the last time she spoke more than 3 sentences to anyone was during an argument with the electric company after they claimed her radio had a faulty signal. Every morning at exactly 7:30, Mrs. Mavis could be found at the market, standing in front of the bread stall like a historical monument. She always bought the same thing: 2 loaves of dark rye bread, 3 brown eggs, and a tub of unsalted butter, because she believed salt was a government conspiracy to dull elderly people's sensory perception. The kids in town called her the cat lady, because she always had at least 2 cats circling her hemline. Rumor had it, if you stared too long into the eyes of her white cat, named Gustav, you wouldn't sleep for 3 nights straight. Once, someone saw Mrs. Mavis singing to herself in the garden. She sang with a strange kind of voice, not like an old person, and not like someone singing just for fun. Her voice had soul. But when a kid made the mistake of complimenting her, she turned and looked at him like he just asked if she had TikTok. After that, no one dared bring up her singing again. People said she used to be a music teacher at a high school. Others claimed she once lived in Chicago, fell in love with a trumpet player, and got dumped for daring to correct his tempo while he was in the middle of a solo. But some swore she was just a retired librarian, and that voice was nothing more than a hearing aid picking up static. In short, to this town, Mrs. Mavis was a quiet question mark, a story left untold in the middle of stories that had long worn out their welcome. But everything started to change on a very ordinary day. And like all ridiculous things in life, it started with an email. Mrs. Mavis didn't like technology. She still used a flip phone, the kind you could throw at a wall, and it would keep working just fine after cracking a brick. Her laptop, if you could even call it that, was a relic from the days when Bill Gates still had a full head of hair, used mostly for playing solitaire and typing up complaint letters to City Hall. So when she opened her email inbox and saw a new message, she tilted her head, blinked 3 times, and muttered, "Humph." Probably that brain supplement scam again. But no. The subject line read, "Larkhaven's annual talent show. We want you." Mrs. Mavis nearly spilled her tea. The word "you" was in all caps, like it was yelling straight at her. She opened the message, her eyes scanning each line like a cop searching a suspect's wallet. "Dear Mrs. Langley, we are delighted to invite you to participate in this year's Larkhaven Talent Show, taking place next Saturday at the Town Hall. Rumor has it your incredible singing voice has made quite the rounds in town. Gustav was probably the first to spill the beans. All acts are welcome, from singing, dancing, storytelling, to owl impressions. We look forward to a performance to remember. Sincerely, the Larkhaven Talent Show Committee." Mrs. Mavis frowned. "Owl impressions? What in the world is that supposed to be?" she asked Gustav, who was sprawled across her keyboard like a bearded dough ball. He meowed indifferently. She shook her head. "This is another one of those kids' pranks. Invite me up there just to be a joke. Make me stand like a singing houseplant, huh?" She should have deleted it right away. But her finger hovered on the keyboard. Part of her, a small part, but one that still beat, wondered, does anyone even remember I used to have a voice? Last year, she had sung a Barbra Streisand song to celebrate Gustav's birthday in the living room, using a hairbrush as a microphone. Gustav fell asleep by the second line. She told herself it was because cats just didn't get sentimental lyrics. In the end, she clicked. Not to reply, but to print the email. She pinned it to her fridge, right next to a photo of herself in a pale pink fur coat from 1974, back when her lips were red like wine, not, as she put it now, red like expired ketchup. And she whispered, almost to herself, I suppose it wouldn't kill me to try one more time. 3 days after receiving the email, Mrs. Mavis Langley decided to practice singing seriously. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she'd accidentally told her best friend Myrtle that she could make the whole town drop dead with her golden voice. Myrtle was the type to tell 5 people, and each of those would tell 10 more, like a gossip version of COVID-19. The problem was, she hadn't sung seriously since before the president had a Twitter account. Mavis pulled out the old radio from the kitchen, the kind with a dial so sensitive that a 0.1 millimeter turn would take you from Mozart to the sound of a truck slamming its brakes. She put on her reading glasses and popped in a karaoke CD burned by the Retired Women's Club back in 2009. A woman named Lorna's voice came through, shaky as a flu-stricken squirrel. Mrs. Mavis stared at the plastic toy microphone in front of her, actually the handle of a mop, and took a deep breath. Okay, I still remember the lyrics to The Way We Were. The moment she sang the first line, Gustav the cat startled and tumbled off the windowsill into a flower pot. He looked at her with the expression of someone who'd just been betrayed. Then, without a word, he walked off, climbed the stairs, and didn't come back down for 3 hours. Mavis, undeterred, kept going. The kettle started to whistle just as she hit a high note, a duet no live band could have timed better. Still, she kept singing. From next door, a voice shouted, Mavis, are you okay? Are you choking? She yelled back, No, I'm flying with emotion. That line later became the title of her rehearsal notes, written in bold red marker, Flying with Emotion. That night, she called Myrtle. I think my voice is still good. A little gravelly, a little dusty with time, but still burning, Myrtle laughed. Gravelly? That's great. People like gravel. Makes it sound real. Besides, it's not like you're auditioning for American Idol. Mavis laughed loud, then paused to think, well, you never know. Then she made a plan. 1 hour of practice a day, 2 vocal warm-ups, each with honey lemon water and a prayer. The house turned into a mini recording studio. The couch was her audience, the throw pillows were the judges, and the hairbrush, forever her most faithful microphone. Though she didn't say it out loud, something unusual began to stir inside her. A flutter, excitement, and a little mischief. Just like the first time she wore tight jeans in 1965 to a twist dance at church, making the pastor blush and look away. This time, she wouldn't look away. She'd stand tall and sing, no matter who was laughing in the crowd. When Mavis Langley entered the preparation phase for her casual but not so casual performance, she realized something important. You can't sing Whitney Houston in a floral pajama set with a heat patch on the back. She needed an outfit with presence. The problem was, since the retirement party in 1992, she hadn't worn anything sparkly except for a reflective waterproof jacket with a light-up back. One of those meant for nighttime walkers who forget their flashlight. Mavis opened her wardrobe. After 10 minutes of rummaging, she pulled out a bright red dress that looked like a dream for Liza Minnelli and a nightmare for any of the women in her senior fitness group. It was the dress she had worn to the high school farewell prom in 1977, the night she almost married the trumpet-playing band leader if he hadn't run off with the bagel shop girl. The dress was still in one piece, except the zipper in the back was no longer as strong as it used to be. When she tried to zip it up, it made a small but meaningful snap sound. Mavis looked around and muttered, It's fine. Zippers are a symbol of oppression. I'll just use double-sided tape. Women these days are more creative. Next came the shoes. She found a pair of silver glittery heels under the bed, along with a New Year's card from 2004 and a chocolate that had melted into a jelly-like consistency. The shoes still fit if she didn't need blood circulation in her toes. Well, beauty requires sacrifice, she said, adding, just like when we used to wear makeup to protest. Finally, it was time for makeup. Mavis hadn't worn makeup since social media was just a bulletin board at the supermarket. She found her makeup bag in the medicine cabinet next to a jar of antifungal cream and a bottle of perfume from the disco era. The mascara had dried up like mud under the summer sun, and the lipstick looked more like chalk. She applied some blush, but because of her shaky hands, it looked like she'd just been playfully slapped by a flamingo. She tried again, this time with the help of a magnifying mirror. The result was better, though she looked a bit like a character from Moulin Rouge in cartoon form. Looking at herself in the mirror, Mavis smiled, not because she looked beautiful, but because she saw her younger self, a woman who dared to sing not for the grades, but because her heart wanted to sing. And now, she just hoped that when she walked out on stage, the dress wouldn't rip, the shoes wouldn't break, and the audience wouldn't call an ambulance thinking she tripped in the spotlight. And if she did fall, she was ready to fall with style. That morning, Mavis Langley walked into the Cultural Center auditorium like a queen. If a queen carried a tote bag, a bottle of water, throat lozenges, and a spare heel pad. The event organizers had invited her to the rehearsal, mostly to set the mood, as they were certain her performance would be the breather between the long, tedious plays from 9A and the Senior Citizens Health Dance Choir. The sound technician was a young guy wearing headphones that were bigger than his head, his hair spiked like a porcupine. He looked at Mavis, gave her a friendly smile, as if to say, "Please don't break our $1,000 sound system," and handed her a wireless microphone. Mavis raised the mic, cleared her throat in a very professional manner, as if she had been clearing it for the past 40 years while grading students' essays. But when she sang the first note, and I will always love you, then the mic let out a screech so high-pitched it startled the pigeons outside the window into a chaotic flight. She paused, politely glanced down at the mic as if she had just discovered it was having an affair with the speaker behind her. "It's louder than I was when I yelled at my husband in 1988, she said, making the entire auditorium burst into laughter. The technician blushed, fiddling with the knobs on the control board, pressing buttons like he was playing a game. Mavis tried again. This time her voice came through, but with an echo effect as if she were singing in a cave. And I love you, ooh." She looked like she was duetting with herself from a past life. "Nice. It's like I'm teaching a yoga class underground," she said deadpan. Sound meditation, very deep. After a few more adjustments, the mic finally decided to behave properly. Mavis started singing again, and this time it was smoother. The technician went silent. Even the young folks who were putting up posters turned their heads. Her voice wasn't perfect. No, not at all. But there was something about it that made people stop and listen. But then, suddenly, clack! Her left shoe lost its heel. Mavis wobbled slightly, almost bursting into an impromptu tango move. She regained her balance by spinning gently, as if doing a quick Tai Chi routine. The audience applauded wildly. Someone shouted, "Oh my God, is she dancing too?" Mavis smiled, adjusted her shoe, and slowly replied, "Sweetie, if I danced any more, my back would call for a rehearsal tomorrow." That evening, Mavis Langley appeared backstage at the community talent show, with a spring in her step, walking slowly and leisurely, with every step accompanied by a creaking sound from her left knee. She wore a plum-colored silk dress, the secret weapon she had kept in her closet since the days when her grandmother didn't even know what karaoke was. Her low-heeled leather shoes were polished to a shine, and inside, Mavis secretly wore a pair of medical compression stockings, because she said, "It's nice to look good, but the blood still needs to circulate, sweetie." At the makeup table, the other contestants were applying lipstick, curling their hair, and gluing on fake eyelashes like they were going into battle. A young girl looked at Mavis and smiled gently. "You're going on after me, right? What are you going to sing?" Mavis smiled mysteriously, like Hercule Poirot just solving a case. "Well, I'm doing the national anthem of someone who's been heartbroken 7 times. You can probably guess who." The girl's eyes widened. "Whitney Houston? Exactly, though I've only been heartbroken 3 times. The last time was in 1973, when the fried fish shop stopped selling my favorite dish." The backstage atmosphere was lively. The pianist was 10 minutes late due to traffic from a cosplay cat parade on Main Street. The host had lost their voice and had to use a falsetto that sounded like a duck with a cold. When it was Mavis's turn, the organizers exchanged winks, expecting a moment of lighthearted entertainment. A young cameraman switched to slow motion mode. Sure, this would be a legendary TikTok moment, the kind that goes like, Grandma hits play and trips over. But Mavis stepped out with the calmness of someone who'd gone through 3 hard drive replacements, 5 dental crown repairs, and once fought her Aunt Brenda for the karaoke microphone. The stage lights shone down. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. She cleared her throat. The mic didn't screech. The lights didn't flicker. Her heels didn't break. And then the first note rang out. The sound was warm, clear, and soulful enough that the judges exchanged glances. The front row audience stopped munching on sunflower seeds. The 2 girls taking selfies with cat filters suddenly forgot they even had one. As for Mavis, she stood there as if she had been on that stage her entire life. And she had only just begun. Mavis had barely sung 2 lines when, behind the wings, a backstage worker holding a bubble tea with a straw suddenly choked on a pearl. He coughed violently, eyes wide as if he had just discovered a great mystery of life. Wait, how is this old lady singing so well? Meanwhile, in the audience, Amelia, the reigning 2-time champion of the talent show, unconsciously sat up straight, abandoning her half-finished lipstick. She tilted her head, furrowed her brow, trying to figure out if she was listening to a professional artist, or if she had mistakenly taken cold medicine before entering the hall. Mavis, on the other hand, remained as calm as if she were singing to the orchids she had planted on her porch. She didn't close her eyes like professional singers do, because, as she put it, close your eyes and you can't see the wires under your feet. Trip, and you'll end up as the comedy contestant instead, kid. By the time the climax of the song arrived, her clear, emotional voice seemed to pierce straight into the hearts of those who thought they were immune to ballads. A long-bearded old man, known for being tougher than a loan shark, even found himself tearing up without knowing why. The camera panned to the head judge, Mr. Barnaby, who had once criticized a contestant for sneezing off beat. He nodded slowly, then took off his glasses and wiped them with the sleeve of his jacket. No one knew if they were real glasses or just oversized frames for that intellectual look. But one thing was clear. He had been won over. Mavis reached the final note, her voice trembling lightly, not from nerves, but because the ligaments in her knee had just let out a little creak. Yet, she held that note as if she were holding on to the youth of the entire audience in that moment. When she finished, the entire auditorium fell silent. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then, bam! An elderly woman in the audience clutched her chest and exclaimed, "Oh my God, when I was her age, I was skipping school to watch opera, never singing a thing." Mavis was momentarily puzzled, then broke into a soft smile. She bowed her head politely, as if she had just finished presenting a freshly baked apple pie. But inside, her heart was beating wildly, like a lion dance drum on New Year's Eve. Little did she know, from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. Mavis's performance caused the entire auditorium to stand up and clap, and it seemed like that would be the end of the story. But no, sometimes the universe likes to tease and show affection. And for Mavis, it chose both. The next morning, while she was sitting down eating oatmeal, wearing her reading glasses, flipping through the February issue of a gardening magazine, with last year's calendar printed incorrectly, the phone rang. Mavis answered while still spooning her oatmeal, muttering, "Probably one of those kids selling dental insurance. I'm old, and they still want me to get crowns for all my teeth." On the other end, a man's voice came through, polite, but unable to hide his nervousness. "Hello, is this Mrs. Mavis Langley? I'm the assistant for the America's Golden Notes show. The organizers would like to invite you to participate in the special round of auditions for the Over 70s Vocalists group." Mavis nearly choked on her spoon. She put it down slowly and asked again, "Are you sure you've got the right Mavis Langley? I live on Maple Street, the house with the red roof, and my husband was chased by a hen back in 1983. The assistant chuckled awkwardly. "Yes, it's definitely you. Your singing clip is going viral. Some TikTok account posted it with the caption, 'Granny's got pipes.' It's already got over 3 million views." Mavis didn't understand what pipes meant in this context. She even checked the pipes in her kitchen, thinking they were complimenting her. home plumbing system. That afternoon, Mavis wore her hand-knitted sweater and the pair of shoes she called just as comfy, though she couldn't tell if it was referring to the word comfy or the brand name. She went to the town center, where a group of young strangers were secretly filming her from a distance. A girl with purple-blue hair came up, smiling brightly. "You're our idol. Do you teach vocal lessons?" "I sing, but it feels like I'm choking on rice paper." Mavis laughed, flashing her shiny gold tooth. "I don't teach singing, but I can teach you how to rinse your nose without choking." By the afternoon, 3 reporters knocked on her door. One was from the local station, one from the Senior Times, and the last one from the Accidental Celebrities magazine. Everyone wanted to interview the grandma who could sing and adjust a mic without help. Mavis remained cool as a cucumber. She said, "I only sing for fun. You all act like I'm about to go on a nationwide tour." Who would have guessed that sentence would turn out to be an unofficial prophecy? Because the very next morning, the first invitation letter from a major television show arrived at her door. After a series of phone calls from names that sounded like bizarre spices, like Pepper TV and Cinnamon FM, and even an invitation to the TikTok Granny Stars conference, which Mavis initially thought was some sort of hair transplant convention, she finally agreed to appear on national television. Why did she agree? Not for the fame, not for the paycheck, though truth be told, she was surprised they were paying her just to stand and sing, without asking her to sweep the stage like at the village fair. It was because her youngest granddaughter, little Ellie, had whispered something that made Mavis's heart resonate like the strings of an old guitar. "Grandma, when you sing, it makes me want to grow up fast, so I can do what I love too." And so, Mavis set off. At the studio, the bright lights were blinding, and the audience was packed. The crew was running around, adjusting mics and hair, most of the time just trying to keep her hair from sticking to her lipstick. Standing backstage, Mavis suddenly thought of the old stages where she used to recite poetry for the Senior Citizens Club. She remembered the sound of the old fan creaking, the audience of elderly folks half listening and nodding off, only to suddenly clap halfway through, thinking she was done. When the host announced her name, applause erupted, but it couldn't drown out the frantic beating of her heart. Mavis stepped forward, standing tall, eyes gazing into the distance, though her legs were still a little shaky. Not from fear, but from emotion. Holding the mic, she smiled and said, "I know some of you are probably thinking, this old lady must have come to the wrong place. This is a stage, not a folk music cafe. But folks, I'm in the right place. What's that? And I'm the right age for it too. The age where I'm no longer afraid of being laughed at, where I'm no longer scared of saying the wrong thing, where I can sing for myself, not because someone told me to be gentle." The whole auditorium applauded, but Mavis hadn't sung yet. She looked out at the audience and, in a deep voice, added, "I'm not a singer. I'm Ellie's grandmother, the woman who dreamed of becoming a singer at 19, but set that aside to be a mother. I'm the wife who once sang lullabies to my husband with old songs, and today I am just me, no less to fit anyone else's mold." Then she began to sing. It wasn't polished like a professional singer's voice, but there was something in her singing that made the audience hold their breath. A voice that had weathered winters, rocked crying children, sat quietly by a sickbed, and sang to herself in the night. And that had stubbornly wished, no matter how close to 75 she was, that she could still shine. As soon as Mavis finished the last note, a high pitch just enough to keep her dentures in place, but still causing a young woman to shed tears, the entire auditorium erupted. People stood up, clapping and cheering, some even holding up their phones as if they were witnessing a rare celestial phenomenon. A shooting star of old age knows how to sing beautifully. The host, who was known for his jokes at the expense of older folks, stood still for the first time, unable to say a word. And the organizers? They formed a long line to ask for autographs and selfies. One of the judges, with slicked back hair, exclaimed, "You just taught me a big lesson, and I'm 52. Mavis giggled, taking photos while saying, "I'm 74, and I just learned that lesson yesterday." That evening, when she got home, Mavis took off her high heels, soaked her feet in a ginger bath, and chuckled as she sighed in relief. What's fame, really? It's something that makes you go all out for one night. Then tomorrow morning, you're still washing your underwear like usual. But then she received a message from Ellie, her little granddaughter. "You're my superhero. You've shown me that age is just a number. I love you so much." And in that moment, Mavis knew. All those applause couldn't compare to this tiny little message. On the wall of her home, a photo of her standing on stage hung proudly, not to boast, but to remind herself that it's never too late to do what you love. As long as you can still breathe, still have shaky hands from nervousness, still laugh when you forget the lyrics, then you can live a life full of music. And if anyone ever asked, "How did you dare to sing at your age?" Mavis would wink and answer calmly, "Well, I've dared to marry 3 times. What's one song?" The lesson to be learned: never underestimate an old lady with a microphone. She might sing off beat, forget the lyrics, or drop her hairpin halfway through. But she might also remind the entire audience and you that old age isn't the end. It's just the climax waiting for you to hit your own key.